Form Affinity,
where design takes form.
Hey guys, welcome to another Form Affinity video. Today we're going to talk about how to set up material nodes for carbon fiber. So resulting in something like this. We're doing a stitch pattern. So what are composites? A composite is a general term for the assembly of two or more materials that, when used together, enable them to do a job that the individual materials cannot do by themselves. So, for example, concrete or reinforced concrete is a type of composite. They consist of a resin matrix, usually like epoxy or polycyanate, alongside the fiber reinforcement. So carbon fiber is that fiber reinforcement, but others include like Kevlar, Nextel, quartz, boron, or glass as is used in fiberglass. All these fibers are very small in diameter and very strong. Likewise, they are light in weight, so they're really useful in things like aerospace design, racing vehicles like Formula One, lightweight and rigid bicycles, and pretty much anything sci-fi related, right? So they're a lot of fun to use. Just a quick note, I am using the Maya config add-on for Blender, which is part of this guy. If it's not required for this tutorial, but if you are interested, I will leave a link to the Gumroad for the free download for that in the description below. Also, I discuss, at the end of this video, I'll discuss the shader elements. So I do other composites, like a glossy version of the one we're going to do today, as well as fiberglass stitch and fiberglass strand, etc., Kevlar. So be sure to stick around for the end of the video if you're interested in that. Also, a quick shout out to @HeavyPoly, who got me started on this carbon fiber madness. So thank you to him. So yeah, let's get started. I'm just going to delete all this stuff here. So we have our basic cube. You can start with whatever you like. I just have a cube with a nice little bevel going on. In the node editor, I'm going to hit Shift A, search for principled shader. And then also, just so you know, I use, or I created these guys. So this is a seamless pattern. All right, so let me show you guys how we create the seamless pattern. This is what it looks like in Affinity Photo. You can use Photoshop or whatever image editing software that you have. Basically, I started off with something, kind of like this, and then moved on to creating a noise pattern that's getting stretched with a motion blur. And for the pattern itself, first off, the document size that I'm using is 2K, so 2048 by 2048. And so when creating the pattern, we can go to our guides manager and split that in half. So 1024 by 1024 will give you your halfway point. And then half of 1024 is 512, right? So as you can see, you start getting the guides to help lay out the pattern. So the other guides, let me go back up there. So we'll create 2 more. So just add these 2 together, gives you 1536. And turn these both off. So that's your guide template. Okay, so now I'm just going to show you guys how to do this. So this will be the end result. So I'm just going to create a new layer. You can turn snapping, enable snapping on, so that you know, when you're creating the marquee tool, the rectangles, they snap to the grid like that, or they snap to the guides, I should say. And now I'm going to fill that with just whatever 50% gray. Get out my gradient tool. Make sure the one on the far side goes to black, so white to black. Now I'm going to go to filter, noise, add noise. We're going to use Gaussian and monochromatic. Hit apply, and I'm actually going to do like 3 of those. Just to add a lot of noise. And then filter, blur, motion blur. And I have it, you see the rotation set to either 90 or 270, and then 400 for your radius. So hit apply. And then we can also go to filter, sharpen, unsharp mask. So those are my settings there. And then finally, we had I believe, yeah, brightness contrast. So brightness contrast. You can see I went a little bit strong on my sharpening. I got some hard edges there, but that's okay. So essentially you just want to get some fibers for that carbon fiber. Do a new layer on top of that. Do another gradient about halfway. And we'll go to from black to 0% opacity. And you can adjust the middle there. That just gives you your other shadow. And so the black, you can adjust the opacity of that. Or you can just do it on the actual layer itself. So I can go here. And turn off my guides. So, and then basically you would just, once you have something that you like there, you put it in a group. put it in another group. Right, I'm going to name this one fibers. And then you copy that group. Let me show guys again. And then take that, right, and then it goes right there. Copy, paste. Goes right there. And you're going to have another one that's up here. Rotate it. And continue on for the other stitching. You can see it up here. It's looking pretty cool. Okay, so let's start Shift A again and type in image texture. So we want one of those. As well, we want RGB node. And then we're going to want to mix those, so we want to mix RGB. So go ahead and plug those in, and we'll plug that into the base color. So next I want to set the mix node to be multiply. I want to set the RGB to be pretty dark, close to black but not quite black. And then something, let's hit Shift A again, and we want our output, so material output, plug that output of the principled into surface. So that's what that looks like. Now let's grab our image texture. So I'm going to click open, navigate to where I have it. I have it just named carbon fiber underscore fibers. Next we want to do a texture coordinate and a texture, or excuse me, mapping. So we're just going to plug in the vector there. And so next I want to bump up my factor here to, let's say, 1. And then let's hit Shift A and grab a math node and put it in here. And let's set this to multiply. And let's set this to a value of 4. So this multiply math node just lets you change the power of the image here. So you can change the value, how much it's seen. And then we can see it's stretching across the surface there. So let's change the scale here to 20 on the X and 20 on the Y. So resulting in something like that. So I'm going to set my specular down, say to like 0.12. And then our clear coat, we're going to bump that all the way up. Transmission, let's try something like 0.45. All right, so next let's work on our roughness. So we want to add 2 nodes here, the Voronoi and the noise. And we're just going to mix those two. I think we want this one on the bottom. this one on the top. Plug that into roughness. So for this guy, let's change from the distance to Chebyshev. And the scale will do something like 6.3. For the noise texture, we'll do a scale of 40. Detail will just set to 0. Okay, and then let's just Control C, Control V, and copy that. And then move these guys over. So we want to create mapping for those guys. So I'm going to copy these two nodes. See if I can get that. Control C, Control V. Plug that into the vector. We're going to do a separate one for this noise. Plug that into the vector. And then we want to scale the top one here. Let's try 200. Bring the Y down to 1. And this one we're going to set X to 1 and Y to 200. So this is going to give us our lines textured on as far as our roughness goes. So that sort of stitch look. We could use the you know, the bump that was made, but it's kind of cool to do it this way and get more control. So we still need to plug that in to what's going on up over here. So let's plug those in by using a mix RGB. For those two colors. And then just to have more control, I'm going to hit Shift A again and have another math node here. Plug that in there. Set it to multiply. We'll do a value of 0.8. Alright, so next we want to do our bump. So let's just grab a bump node. Plug the normal into the normal of the principled shader. For the height, we're gonna grab. Let's grab the JPEG for the height. And then, I know it looks crazy right now. Let's mix it. Mix RGB. And I want to mix with this guy here. Let's take our strength down to something like 0.4. And our distance to 0.004. So 2 zeros after the decimal place. So we get something like that. And then let's use an invert node and plug it into the right after the JPEG so that goes into that mix. Okay, so this is what we have so far. Let's go into this mix that's going into the roughness and just take this factor down a little bit. say 0.24. Alright, now I'm going to pause the video while I do a render. Alright guys, so here's what I ended up with. Pretty happy with that render. You got your stitch effect and a little bit of bump and roughness pattern going on. Feel free to play around with anisotropic, maybe a little bit of sheen. You can also change your scatter pattern there. You can mess with your color a little bit. Let's say you wanted more of like an orange or something, or red. That's pretty cool. Red carbon fiber, green, etc. Or purplish pink. So yeah, hope you enjoy the tutorial. Let me know if you have any questions. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed working with carbon fiber within Blender. On my Gumroad page, I have a new product called Shader Elements, Pack 1 Composites. This is a zip file containing 6 Blender files and 1 compiled Blender file. So you get the 6 individual textures and then the scene of all of them together compiled like you see here. The textures include Kevlar, 2 carbon fiber textures, so there's a matte and a glossy, 2 fiberglass, so there's the stitch and the strand, and then there's a sci-fi styled hex composite, so kind of a theoretical composite. They have an RGB light setup, so you can see that here, and then also you can turn those off so you can test out the shaders in various lighting conditions. Your red, blue, green, and see how it varies the look of the texture. Also, it contains 2K seamless textures. The really cool periodic element style shader model is also included. So let me walk you through what the scenes look like. Here's an example. So you get the studio light setup and the shader models. So there's 6 of those guys plus the combined setup. And there's a few different camera angles to mess around with. So these scenes are great for testing out materials prior to committing them to full-scale models. You can go in and tweak the various shaders and see it all done within a consistent lighting scenario. Lastly guys, you can drag and drop these into any scene that you already have started working on, and you will have the material ready to go. So if you're interested in that, I will leave the link to the Gumroad page in the description below, and thanks a lot.